G'day everyone, today I wanted to show you how I access my port. The first thing I do is clean all my surfaces and get all my medical supplies ready. Then I wash my hands really well and put on a mask and gel my hands. Once my hands are dry, I'll then put on some non-sterile gloves. Now I'll gel my non-sterile gloves. Now I'll take my basic dressing pack. This is a type 10 Centurion, and I'll place it on my clean surface. Now I'll carefully unwrap the sterile field by just touching the outer corners. This is a little tray that I'll be using to place my non-sterile Posi flush across, so I just have that at the outer edge of my sterile field. Gel my non-sterile gloves again. Now I'll take my tweezers and begin to remove the items from the tray. So I've got a sterile towel and some more tweezers. I'll just move my tray over to the bottom left of the sterile field, and then carefully remove the sterile gauze, which is one of the most important items in the dressing pack. Okay, now I'll start to place my medical supplies on the sterile field. So I'm going to open an IV 3000 film dressing. The one I use is a 10 by 14 centimetre. The next thing I'll be prepping is this Posi flush syringe. So there's 10 mils of saline in there, and this is a non-sterile syringe. I'll be needing 2 of them and a little tray to place it on. To prep the syringe, I pop the air, take it out of the wrapper and release the cap on top so I can push out a little bit of the saline to get rid of the air bubbles. I then tighten the cap and place it on my tray. The sterile gloves I'll be using are in an 8.5. They're Gamix Latex Derma Shield. And so I'm just going to open up the packet, but leave the gloves inside and just place it on the surface next to me. Gel my non-sterile gloves again. So now I take my little skin prep sachet. This is a Smith & Nephew, and I just rip the top off and sort of open it up a little bit so I'm able to use the tweezers to take out the little swab when I need it, and I place it on the very edge of my sterile field. So I'll be using this clear needleless connector. You may know it as a bung or a clave. Okay, so now I'm going to peel open half of the packet, which will just expose the tip of the connector. So while opening this packet, make sure you don't contaminate the tip. Now I take my first Posi flush saline syringe and I attach the lure lock to the connector. And always being mindful of the sterile technique. And making sure to leave the packet on. Gel the non-sterile gloves. Okay, now I take my accessing needle, which is a gripper non-coring needle. It's a 20 gauge by 19 mil. So now I'm going to open the packet from the cap side, and I'm going to just open it partially so I'm able to loosen that cap while still in the packet so I'm not contaminating it. And then I'll peel open the packet a bit, exposing the cap, and I can take it off and then take the packet off of the connector and attach it to the gripper needle, and hopefully not contaminating anything in the process. Then take it out the packet and place the gripper needle on the sterile field and the Posi flush on the little tray next to the sterile field so they're not touching each other. Gel my non-sterile gloves again. To clean my port, I'll be using 4 of these Reynard alcohol chlorhexidine swab sticks. To prep the swab stick, I peel the top of the packet off and pour the contents into the sterile tray, and then I'll just slowly get the stick out by squishing it up through the packet, and hopefully it lands in the tray and not on the floor. Now I pick up the sterile towel from its corners and carefully open it up. And tuck it into my shirt, trying not to contaminate it. Then just wait while I have a bit of brain fog. And take off my non-sterile gloves and gel my hands again. So once my hands are dry, I'm going to open my sterile gloves and just put my right hand glove on. I can help putting the glove on by touching only the inside of the cuff with my non-sterile hand. So now my right hand is sterile, my left hand isn't. With my left hand I can pick up my Posi flush, and with my right I'm able to hold my gripper needle. Okay, now to prime the line, I take hold of the gripper needle's wings in my 2 front fingers like so. And then I hold on to the clasp with my thumb and my first finger and point the needle facing downwards as I put the saline through, and then I clasp off. And the reason you point the needle down is so that when you're priming the line, the casing doesn't fill up with saline. Then I lay the needle back on the sterile field and put the Posi flush back on my little tray there. Then I put my left sterile glove on. Now I take my first swab stick and begin to sterilise all the port area. So I work from the very centre and using quite a bit of friction in a circular motion, work my way out and concentrating where the scar site is and all around where my film dressing will go. Okay, now it's super important just to be patient and wait for the alcohol to dry completely and never fan it or blow it dry. Now I carefully pick up the gripper needle, making sure not to touch the non-sterile Posi flush. I take off the needle's little cap and I hold my port in place so it won't move, making sure not to stretch the skin too taut. Place the needle in between the bumps on the septum, and while holding my breath I will push the needle nice and steadily through to the back of the port. Now I need to check for blood return, so I'll take a piece of the sterile gauze and I'll wrap it around the Posi flush so that my sterile glove doesn't get contaminated. Undo the clasp. Take another piece of gauze and put it over the syringe so I'm able to push through a little bit of saline and then pull on the syringe to check that I'm getting blood return. And there you can see this blood return. And then with a start-stop motion or push-pause motion, put through the saline and making sure to clasp off with 1 ml of saline left in the syringe. And that's so if there is any air in the syringe, I'm not pushing it through the line. Now to remove the gripper needle's wings. This can be a little bit difficult sometimes to do. So you need to hold down the port, keeping the needle secure in place while holding on to the wings and then gradually sort of twisting them off. So now I'll take another piece of the sterile gauze and fold it into a little ball and soak up the remainder of the alcohol and chlorhexidine mix and wipe over the port area and all around the skin wherever the dressing is going to go. I'll wait for the alcohol to dry completely before applying my skin prep. Now I take another piece of the sterile gauze and pick up the little swab of skin prep and I take it out of the packet with a pair of tweezers, like so. So I lightly apply it over the skin wherever my film dressing is going to be, and this will help the dressing stay on for around 5 days. and I'll let this completely dry. So I take the IV3000 and unpeel half, and then lightly place that half over my port, and then I start to stick down around the casing and making sure to release any air bubbles that are caught around it, and I'm moving in an outward direction. And then I unpeel the rest of the backing. And stick down the remainder of the dressing while keeping the tubing to the side. Okay, so now my port site is safely covered. I don't have to worry about keeping my gloves sterile. Okay, that looks pretty awesome. Happy with that. So now I'm about to use the second Posi flush, and I'm going to clean the end of the connector first with alcohol and chlorhexidine swab. Now it's really important when cleaning the end of the connector with an alcohol swab that you use quite a bit of friction for at least 12 to 15 seconds, and then make sure you allow it to dry before connecting your syringe. Also, I like to use 2 alcohol swabs because I'm a germaphobe. So now I'll take my second Posi flush and check that the line has remained patent and that I'm still getting blood return. Then I keep the tubing in place with a bit of medical tape. So now I'll gel my hands and take another IV3000 dressing, which I will use to make a border around the original dressing. And that is because I will be accessed for 5 days straight, so I just like to make sure it's nice and secure. So here I just take a pair of scissors and sort of cut off the end of the tab. So securing that, I'm continuing on with the border of the first dressing. And then doing the same with the other side. Okay, thank you so much for watching. That's the end of the video on how I access my own port. And please remember, if you have a port and you've seen anything here that you would like to try, check with your doctor first, because I'm not a medical professional. This is just what I found works best for me and my situation, which is running daily infusions because I have a condition called POTS. Thanks again. Bye.